welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca. Today I am doing my May wrap up and I am so proud of myself. This is the first time I have actually stuck with my TBR. The first book that I read in the month of May was The Hazelwood, and this is by Melissa Albert. I gave this 3 stars. I wasn't thoroughly impressed with this book. They talked about the Hazelwood all the time and as it being a house or a building, and I kept thinking, oh, okay, it's gonna be this very mysterious, very mythical, magical house, almost having like a the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe closet kind of vibe is what I was really hoping for. And it didn't do that. It actually went in a completely different way as far as that goes. So yeah, that was my opinion on this one. The next one that I read was the Selection series by Kiera. And this entire series is being made into a Netflix show. It's just lighthearted and loving and friendly, and it makes me giggle. I mean, it's just like one of those like girly teeny bopper type romance stories where it's like a hate to love relationship. I still thoroughly enjoyed it because I felt like it was a comfort read. I did give this one a 5 out of 5 stars again. And yeah. The next one is The Elite, and this is book 2 in the Selection series by Kiera. This basically is the second book in the series, and I also gave this 5 stars. And this one is The One. This is book 3 in this in the Selection series. Still really thoroughly enjoyed this trilogy. Again, like I said, you know, it's still one of my top book series as far as it just being something that I know I can read, especially if I'm having a lot of anxiety and I can't stand dealing with a lot of suspense or drama. This is something that I can go to and just read and enjoy and not feel overwhelmed. I did give this one also a 5 out of 5 stars. The next one that I read was Happily Ever After, and this is a compilation to the Selection series. There's like 4 or 5 little compilation books within this book. You have The Prince, The Guard, The Queen, and The Favorite, and The Maid. Yeah, so it doesn't say it on the back, but it's also in there. And I gave this a 4 out of 5 just because, I mean, it was cute, but I mean, it's a compilation. So, you know, for it to be a 5 out of 5 stars, it would have to be, I think, like a lead book kind of a thing, in my opinion. But because it is a compilation, I did give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was still a really good read, a really fun read. The next book that I read was The Heir, and this is book 4 of the Selection series. I was kind of annoyed with the lead character in this. She kind of had an entitled personality. She was very like whiny at some times, and kind of, I don't know, I had a really hard time connecting with this character just because she just felt entitled to me. And so, and the way that she treated the other characters in this book, I had a really hard time with. I felt like in this, because she was, you know, gonna be queen, it gave her that out. Like, she didn't have to treat people kindly because, well, she's gonna be queen, you know? And so that to me was just, I just had a hard time connecting with that. I gave this one 4 stars. I think I gave more stars to it than I mean, right now I'm thinking it should have been a 3 out of 5 stars. But I think just because of being captured in this world and still being on a high from reading the previous trilogy within it, I think that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. This is The Crown, and it is book 5 in the Selection series by Kiera. And this is the conclusion to, I guess it's like just a little duology, but they consider it book 5 out of the series. And like I said before, it was not a great read. I felt like the end of this book was very rushed, and it like the end of the story kind of came out of nowhere. When I go into these certain books, I really go in for the romance and for, you know, like the hate to love romance or the friends to love romance or something like that. And this was just like insta love out of nowhere. And it was, you know, it was just odd and awkward. And for her to go from 0 to 100 in a matter of like a couple of chapters, it just didn't feel authentic to me. And it felt rushed and forced. And I gave that one 4 out of 5 stars. But like I said with the last one, I think I was being a little bit generous for it. I probably should have given it 3 out of 5 stars. So the next one that I read was The Betrothed. And this was by Kiera. This I was stoked for. This was like my one read that I had to read before the, you know, out of all the books that I wanted to read this year, this was the one that I wanted to read. And in this, it was a lot like the second half or the duology of the Selection series, where I just was so annoyed with the lead character. I felt she was obnoxious. I felt like she was kind of like a valley girl / entitled brat. It's really hard to get into it. And then her love interest in this was very rushed, very forced, very thrown together at the last minute. I don't want to ruin this book for anybody. I'm trying to be very careful with not giving any spoilers, but I don't know how it's supposed to get better in the next book that she comes out with. This is supposed to be a duology. And I'll still read it. I'm still planning on reading the second book because I'm sorry about the dog barking. She's upset because I won't let her in. Anyhow, I felt, you know, I just don't know how this is going to turn out because of the direction that it took with her love interest. I guess I've just built it up so much of what I want out of this, and I don't think I'm going to get it. And, I did give this one, I flat out gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. You know. So the next one I read was The Sorcery of Thorns, and this is by Margaret Rogerson. I was actually surprised by how well I enjoyed this book, and I really would have enjoyed it if it was a duology or a trilogy or something continued from this. But I think as a book by itself, it was a great standalone book on its own. I did give it 4 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was immersed in this book. I read it very quickly, and I thoroughly enjoyed this entire read. The next book that I read was Bone Crier's Moon by Katherine Purdy. And I was disappointed in this one. I was expecting such a different storyline than what it did. And I don't know, I just had a really hard time getting into the characters. I just kept thinking that the lead character that was running the story, basically, I just kept thinking that she was supposed to be a secondary character, and it was supposed to be the other girl represented in it was supposed to be the lead character. And I don't know why I felt that way. Maybe because they started with a secondary character as the first voice that you know, the first character that you're introduced to. Because they introduced her first, I just kept thinking that she should have been the main character or the main romance in this, and it wasn't that way at all. And then again, I felt like the romance in this was rushed. It was more of an not insta love. It was supposed to be like a hate to love relationship, and I just feel like it went from like hate to instant love. Like there was no building of their relationship. You just didn't feel it. You didn't see the connection there, or the building of it, or anything like that. The urgency of them wanting to grow closer to each other. I really wanted to like this book. I had a lot of hopes for this book because it came out in 3 different book boxes. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is gonna be fabulous. I'm gonna absolutely love this book. And I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And last but not least, I read The Girl the Sea Gave Back, and this is by Adrienne Young. And this is the second book, or I guess it's the duology from Sky in the Deep. I absolutely love Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. Oh my gosh, I loved it. I still, like, I would go back and read that book over and over and over again, just because I love the angst in it. I love the relationship that built. I love the fact of how strong that lead female was and how courageous she was. And even in the time where she felt like she was defeated, she still held on and just pushed through. Anyway, I'm getting into a completely different book, but this one, it didn't give me that. It had a character in here. She lived a very battered lifestyle. She was looked down on by everyone around her. She was away from her family and her home. She grew up not knowing her family, and she grew up thinking that her family didn't care about her or that they tried to kill her, and that's how she ended up with this other family, this other tribe, and this other tribe hated her because of her skills. So we're gonna get into spoilers here. Flat out telling you now, we're gonna get into spoilers with this book. So if you don't want to hear the spoilers, let me tell you really quick, I did give this book 3 out of 5 stars. And so now if you haven't read this book and you don't want to hear the spoilers, go ahead and fast forward this part real quick. So anyhow, the end of this book, like the two characters that they're supposed to be like the lead male and the lead female, and they're supposed to have this, as far as what I felt, they should have had this amazing romance because that's what I saw in the first book. However, they don't even meet until the end of the book. So for me, that was just like, and you're reading them as separate characters who haven't even met each other, haven't even, been a part of each other. And that's why I read these books. That's why I like the YA books, is because of the sappy romance. And I did not get the sappy romance. And then at the very end, it was just like all of a sudden, oh, she's in love with him and he's in love with her. And her family comes back and they realize that, she wasn't, they thought she was dead all along. And so when they find out that she's alive, they all, her whole tribe comes to, get her. And then she's like, oh, well, I have this family that I've always wanted that I don't have. And then I have this guy that I just met, and I'm instantly in love with him, and I'm gonna stay with this guy, even though the entire book I've wanted to crave, I wanted to know what my parents were like, and my mom and my dad and my tribe, and she's very curious about her tribe, but yet at the very end she's like, oh yeah, I'm so lucky I get to finally meet my parents, but I'm gonna send them back to their little corner of the world, and I'm gonna stay with this guy that I just met, that I just insta-loved with. And it infuriates me that it ended up that way, because I felt like this could have been so much more and so much better because of how well the first story was written. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox. And so now if you have skipped forward, we're good to go. We're done talking about spoilers. So anyway, like I said, I did give this one 3 out of 5 stars. It could have been better. That was all the books that I read in the month of May. And so I felt like I had a so-so month. I did read everything that I set out to read for the month. I did binge read a bunch of it. I listened to a lot of audiobooks for the most part for those books. But I just still felt like, I ended on a low. I was really hoping to end on a good high and have, just be super excited to go into the month of June, but it just really didn't do anything for me. And it really made me struggle to get into reading again. And so we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for joining me here and listening to me rattle on about my favorite books and what I'm reading and everything. And so, go ahead and leave me a comment in the little comment section if you so choose to do, if that even was English or words. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys are staying healthy. I hope you guys are all staying positive out there. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, everyone.